Welcome back, everybody. We continue in chapter 35. In this Tanya class, I will note that it is important to go back to the previous class simply because it is a long time we spent as an introduction in the introduction to chapter 35, which if you could help me over here, go back to the previous, for those of you who did not attend, newcomers in particular, make it easier for me to not to spend this time, this coming moments, to reiterate re-explain the basis of chapter 35, because we did take time to explain, because there is a question which is a very fundamental question which can come up and does come up, and this is a chapter which is dedicated to that classic question, which again we ask ourselves, and I will naturally say it in brief, but we took the time to elaborate on this question and to give it some taste and spice, or rather spice and spirit, and in order to appreciate the answer, in order to appreciate the response of the Alter Rebbe in this very chapter. So it's in the last class, even though it's titled the end of chapter 34, which I would say the significant or a majority of the previous class was on the end of chapter 34, but we began one line in chapter 35, but we spent quite some time explaining what this Pedic is all about. So you can see it again just in the last weeks, just to click on the link box Tanya, or you can find it on the tanyaonline.com website, again hosted by KosherTube, yet the advantage that it's only about this class, easy to access all the previous classes, and namely you could follow along with the text. We did place the text at the beginning of chapter 35 with the introduction, so you can, and I suggest you just to have more of appreciation of the message of Lamed Hey, to go back there, and so we'll be able to begin right away Perek Lamed Hey, even though, needless to mention, we'll very much in brief, as the Alter Rebbe himself asks the question in the text, as we follow the text, re-ask the question again, or explaining what Perek Lamed Hey is all about, what the Alter Rebbe is coming to tell us in Perek Lamed Hey. But again, no question that to have a more of appreciation, to go back there into this very previous class. So Perek Lamed Hey, we begin. The additional explanation to the word Laseisei. Now the Alter Rebbe is referring to the pasuk, which if you look, which literally means there's a pasuk in Dvarim, in Chumash Dvarim, ki karev elecha, that this is close to you, hadavar, this, and this davar is close to you. What is it referring to? Naturally referring to Torah, even though there's a number to say it, to note, there's a number of commentaries which say karev elecha hadavar, it's referring to tshuva, but simply the message in that pasuk and then verses that karev elecha davar ma'id, that Torah is close to you, not just close to you, but ma'id, very close to you, beficha v'lvavcha laseisei, in your mouth and in your heart, laseisei, as you bring it into action. That's the end quote of the pasuk. For that matter, the Alter Rebbe says the whole Tanya, if you see in the Sharblat, which means in the opening gate, in the opening page of Tanya, before the Tanya actually, in the Shar, in the gateway into Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says this is the whole reason why he's coming to explain this is the whole this pasuk is he's coming to explain by writing the Tanya, in the Tanya. Why does it need explanation? It obviously needs explanation. What does it mean it's very close to you? Is it very close to us? On the outset, it could be challenging. In other words, like this, as we explained then, in the very beginning when we learned that Sharb, like we learned the first page, we explained then the what Alter Rebbe is basically saying. If you say Torah Mitzvahs in brief, if you say Torah Mitzvahs is not close, but do it anyway, I can understand. It's close. It's something which can be challenging. Yet if Torah doesn't just say do it anyways, it says it's close to you. It means to say something which is you have easy access or easy way of implementing the limud Torah kima mitzvahs. And understandably, it's not one mitzvah. It's not the mitzvahs we connect to Torah periodically. It's every single moment, every single day, and every single moment, practically every second, we have a mandate. We're on duty, rather, every single moment. And Torah doesn't just say do it anyway. Torah says it's close, and Torah says ma'id, it's very close. So the Alter Rebbe is trying to explain to us, how do you say when Torah says it's close and very close? It needs naturally some explanation. The Alter Rebbe says this is the whole purpose of me writing the Tanya, to explain that pasuk. So and a bit the Alter Rebbe basically defining what our mandate is as Beinanim, which he calls the whole Sefer Shel Beinanim, and even up what we learned till now, we can appreciate the Alter Rebbe's explanation, how it's truly attainable and close, because our mandate is not to be the tzaddik, it's to be the Beinanim. But again, if you follow the classes, we start understanding and appreciating the Alter Rebbe's explanation of this very pasuk. But I'm just saying this because the Alter Rebbe says la'aseisei to explain the word, additional explanation of the word la'aseisei. So throughout the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe also dissected the pasuk, the latter part of the pasuk, b'ficha levavcha la'aseisei, in your mouth and in your heart, as you bring it into action. Namely, the Alter Rebbe touches upon it in the chapter Yud Zayin, the 17th chapter, as explaining us the mandate of the Yid, as part of the explanation and presentation of the Alter Rebbe in the mandate of the Yid, and of ultimately bringing everything into action, and not necessarily the heart, which consists of our feeling, our sentiments, our emotions, and our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by nature fluctuate. And there, that was the message in Yud Zayin, which was a vital, important, fundamental message. Heart fluctuates constantly, but the main thing is la'aseisei, to make sure that as the Alter Rebbe explains there, that there's never a compromise when it comes into the actual fulfilling Torah mitzvahs, in action, in speech, and thought. Because that's the message of la'aseisei. Bring it into action. Implement Torah. In the end of the day, it's about implementing Torah mitzvahs. So the Alter Rebbe here says additional explanation of the word la'aseisei. Another explanation, additional explanation of this very word, of Torah's mandate, of la'aseisei, bringing Torah mitzvahs into action. I want to explain in this chapter. It says the Alter Rebbe, why does it need explanation? What is the Alter Rebbe coming to tell us? The importance, the significance in this chapter, the importance and the significance of asiyas Torah, asiyas mitzvahs, doing the mitzvahs, simply putting on the tefillin, putting up the mezuzah, staying away from every leisesa, every this which Hashem says not to do. But namely in this chapter, as he continues over here, dealing with the mitzvahs asay, this what Hashem says us to do, the la'aseisei, the actual la'aseisei. And what is the virtue of Torah mitzvahs? Naturally, Hashem says to do it. We need not to look for any virtues. But the question is, what is there? Is there something that we can appreciate when it comes to doing mitzvahs? And basically, the Alter Rebbe classifies the question later. Again, here he just says, I'm going to explain. This is the purpose of the chapter. But later, the Alter Rebbe puts it in a kind of in a question. The whole point of Torah mitzvahs is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to be one and part of Elokus, in other words, of the godly reality, to connect ourselves to God. Isn't our neshamas, our soul, already a part of God? And as Alter Rebbe not only explains this in Tanya, he revolutionizes this pasuk, which says it's a pasuk in Tanakh, that the neshama is a chelik elokam, it's a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and this is the thread, the theme throughout the entire Tanya, or an important thread, which the Alter Rebbe crosses every single chapter, which the Alter Rebbe says really who we are. It's not Torah mitzvahs and a Yid, or God and godliness with a Yid, it's not two things which have to connect. Essentially, we have the godly reality within us, within our system. What makes us a Yid is our neshama. And from the perspective of the neshama, we are a chelik elikah, we are a part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chelik elikah mimal. The Alter Rebbe adds mamash, which means it's tangible, it's a palpable reality. This is who the Yid is. He has a neshama which is part of God. So the question is, if who we are already, we have the godly reality within our system. So why do we need Torah mitzvahs in order to connect to God? We hold the message of the Alter Rebbe, or as we know it, Torah is chelik, Torah is part of it. The Gemara says Anechi is an acronym, Anechi meaning the first word, whereby HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Anechi is the first word HaKadosh Baruch Hu opened up the Aseret HaDibros, the Ten Commandments, and the Gemara says, I am, again, Anechi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. So the Gemara says Anechi is an acronym, Ano Nafshi Ksavis Yahavis. I, Ano Nafshi Ksavis Yahavis. You have the four letters of Anechi. I, my soul, my essence. Ksavis, I wrote you into Torah, and Yahavis, I gave it over to you. I gave myself into Torah. And we know Torah is God. Torah is Elokus. Torah is the way Hashem express Hashem's essence is invested in Torah. It means every piece of Torah, part of Torah that we learn, we are simply connecting to the godly reality which exists in Torah, which is again, this is the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the deepest level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists within every idea and every word which exists in Torah. Mitzvahs are evarim de malka, as it says, the expression of Zayir. It's the Ratzon Hashem, and Hashem told us to do mitzvahs. Naturally, in every single mitzvah there's a godly energy, but again, the Zayir says it even clearer, evarim de malka. This is the limbs of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You do mitzvahs, you're hugging HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're embracing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, based on the Lashonis and Pasuk, meaning Techapkeni, which is again, everything is all based on the Psukim which are brought in Tanakh. So this is the way we connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu via Torah mitzvahs. But the question is, why do I have to connect to something which I'm innately connected to already? I have a neshama. So we have to understand so this is again the nekuda, the point that it says, I'm going to explain you the last say, meaning to say ultimately the virtue of learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. And my connection, the fact that I have to God, the fact that I have a neshama is ultimately inadequate. And I need to learn Torah, I need to do mitzvahs to really truly to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, giving you a little heads up, and here the Alter Rebbe goes on with another question. V'gam lahavin ma'at mizeir, to understand a bit, tachlis b'riyas ha'beinanim, the ultimate objective of the creation of the beinanim. V'yiridas nishmesei lelam haza, the descent of their soul into this physical world, lislabish b'nefesh ha'baham, is to invest in an animal soul. Shema klipa, as we learned, that the animal soul comes from klipa and sitracha, which again is the forces of impurity. That is the makeup, that is the texture of the nefesh ha'bahamis, that is the texture of the Yetzer Hara, or Nefesh Bahamis, namely Nefesh Bahamis, which is the animal soul, which we learned about so much, and that term animal soul, even over Yetzer Hara, which is again a brilliant, nothing less than brilliant. I don't have to use the lashon until say the I have to have my comment to say the Alter Rebbe's lashonos are brilliant from the perspective of complimenting the Alter Rebbe. Obviously not. I'm just saying I say brilliant because the Alter Rebbe gave this accurate description of really what's happening within us. There's a godly soul fighting an animal soul. Not necessarily it's not necessarily bad. And we say Yetzer Hara, you say it's already an evil inclination. What the Alter Rebbe is telling us that we have before even you enter the world of bad and evil which exists, which can exist within the system, you don't have to look so far. What's really challenging us is the Nefesh Bahamis, is the animal soul. Again, we spoke about this a number of times, that this lashon Alter Rebbe uses this, the challenging force within us, doesn't emphasize so much the Yetzer Hara, which by definition literally means bad and evil, Yetzer, evil inclination, evil Yetzer, but he uses Nefesh Baham. That's the real challenging us, is the animal soul. And if you look at the animal, it's not particularly bad. It's not bad at all if it needs to be an animal. It just does whatever contributes to its comfort. That's what the animal is all about. it can ultimately, once it just gives in to whatever it wants to do, it can cross the stop sign, it can cross the line between doing things which just contribute to its comfort, to doing bad stuff as well. For example, goring another animal, harming another animal, etc., or harming anybody else, a human being, and so on and so forth. But for that matter, it's not its nature. Remember, we mentioned the Gemara. The Gemara says that an animal is a muad only after 3 times goring, because on the contrary, it's not its very nature to gore. What is its very nature? Look at the animal, go to the barn, you'll see, go to the farm, the barn, you will see the animal just does whatever contributes to its comfort. It sleeps and eats, scratches itself, and so on and so forth. And we have that, what Alter Rebbe is basically saying, we have that within ourselves, as we all know it. Not everything we do, which is particularly ungodly, is associated with anything bad. In the bigger picture, it's inappropriate, meaning inappropriate because we're deviating from this which we came down to this world for. We have a mandate, to make a Kadosh Baruch Hu a home in this very world by learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, to demonstrate who we really are as human beings, to have, as we're able to govern completely, in other words, as human beings with a mandate to act like an Adam, with a Tzir Adam, over the Tzir Behema, not to just fall into the status quo or to the animalistic temptations and desires and say, well, I have that within me, might as well give in to them. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that I created you with a Nefesh Bahamis, but I want you to overcome that Nefesh Bahamis. I want you to overcome those animalistic temptations, because you have a mandate. You have to learn Torah and do mitzvahs. There's to be Me'ach Shalit Alalev, mind over heart. We have the ability to govern our heart. We have the ability that we have full control over our heart. And then when we say heart, this is the animal which exists within our heart, the Nefesh Bahamis, which is situated, namely heart, as we know, it's about what the heart wants. I want this, I want that. I'll feel comfortable, my heart will feel comfortable, so to say, with this, that, and the other. That is an animalist, that's the Nefesh Bahamis, which exists over the level. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us the ability to be Mach Shalit Alalev, to govern, to control, and to ultimately be able to implement our unique mandate, which Hashem gave us the schus, in order to have this Meiser Ha'adam Mina Behema, the priority of man over animal, the superiority of man over animal, and to implement our important mandate in learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, ultimately making HaKadosh Baruch Hu a home in this very physical world. So where does Nefesh Bahamis come from? Nefesh Bahamis is associated with the impure forces. Now, within impure forces itself, as we know, the Alter Rebbe pointed this out in chapter 6 or 7, that there's the Sholosh Klipsat Meis, the nadir level of impurity which is associated with true evil. And again, you could look there. It's a lot to learn there, a lot to say. Alter Rebbe gives perspective and Torah mitzvahs. Something which is not kosher, for example, it's intrinsically impure. Can't eat a piece of meat and say, now I'm stronger, now I can learn a piece of Gemara. It takes you and the Gemara down into the abyss, being saying as it is. The forces of impurity is the lowest. You can't think anything which is more distant than HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then the forces of impurity associated with every single Aveda, 365 Avedas. But the Nefesh Bahamis, if you look at the Nefesh Bahamis, as we mentioned, it's not essentially evil. It's not bad, and therefore, on the other hand, it's not holy. It's just animalistic. So there, the Alter Rebbe explains it comes from Klippas Nega, the middle level of Klippa, or the higher, call it higher. In other words, they're not the nadir lowest level of Klippa, but it's something. It's neutral, and it could be ultimately transformed, as we explained there. This is the mission of the person, to domesticate the animal within him and ultimately refine it in the end of the day. Every part of us would appreciate and can appreciate our connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu via Torah mitzvahs. Ought to appreciate, because this is this is the point. Just like an animal, there's different levels within animals. There's animals which are more of non-domesticated animals are more dangerous. Then you have the same animal could be domesticated and refined and so on and so forth. And we, as the Mishnah says, V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavcha. That not only it's a type should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which obviously it does, it's a part of God. What else does it love? But even the animal soul, even it's a harder there in the Mishnah, but in understanding, the animal soul ought to be ultimately transformed. In other words, in our conscious mind, how do we translate? How does this translate in simple words? Our conscious mind would appreciate and understand there's nothing greater than Torah mitzvahs. There's nothing greater our involvement in a good class, and a good experience, a good healthy davening, exercising a healthy davening, a good class, a good shir, a Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, Tanya, in community affairs, in tzedakah programs and so on. Then we realize it's not only we can get involved to such a degree that we ourselves, not only our godly soul finds passion in this, which becomes obvious, but even the nefesh bahamis is refined more and more, that every part and every fiber that exists within us appreciates and finds its passion in godly activities. Again, namely Torah mitzvahs, by extension, Kol Masech L'Shem Shamayim, Kol Derech HaChodei, as we elaborate. But yet, till we get there, and this is pretty much the Aved of the Beini, there's the Nefesh Bahamis, which doesn't make it easy for us. And many times there's a struggle, not only on a daily basis, but it could be on an hourly basis, on a minutely basis. Don't do that. Don't get so excited. Don't get up so early. You could come a little bit late. Skip today. What about davening for minyan? Do it tomorrow. Because we all know it. The nefesh, what is it? What voice is that? That's the animal voice, which is, again, when it crosses the red line, something which contradicts Shulchan Aruch, then it's not so. Then it's not only an animal, the nature, and then it's not so much the animal. Then there's a kind of it can cross. It can't cross, and when it contradicts clear Shulchan Aruch, it's like the animal goring. It crosses a line which could be again bring the yid, the Rachmana litzlan, into a state of the shalosh kibsat meis, the lower level of impurity, but its presentation is not evil. That's the point. Sleep a little more. Don't you need to sleep a little more? You were there yesterday on time. Why do you have to come today on time? Where does it come from? We all know it. This is an animalistic message. You appreciate the pillow. Aren't you comfortable? Why do you have to? and this is and when it comes to the Beinani, this is the norm. This is the norm, as we said, the difference of the tzaddik and the Beinani. Despite the Beinani has never sinned, and again, Li'over v'Li'yaver, an expression of the Alter Rebbe in the 14th chapter, never sinned and never will sin. Not only in action, not even in speech, and even in thought. He's somebody who governs every thought of his. That's stupendous. That's special. Yet it's attainable to every single person. Understand that. It's not, like we said, the difference of the Beinani and the tzaddik. The tzaddik, the Beinani has the signals which come from the heart, which could give it very evil signals. Something which is inappropriate, namely in the context of immodesty, which challenges our thoughts. So the signals could come. The moment I notice, the Beinani notices this is inappropriate, he will shun, he will push away, with both his hands, that thought, not allow it to enter his thoughts. And his speech and his action, he's a perfect Jew, yet his nefesh bahamis, and again, this is the difference between him and the tzaddik. Nefesh bahamis is fully intact. Fully intact, meaning, when you say fully intact, that the challenges are always there. Because we all know it. Despite we try, we want to be good Jews, the challenges are always there. And Alter Rebbe's name messages, they're there. They might stay there for the next year. They might stay there for the next 10 years. They might stay there for all your life. You have the mandate. In other words, the signals, the nefesh bahamis being fully intact. It could be that it'll remain with you throughout your entire life. Don't be dejected. Don't feel dejected as a result. Don't go into any melancholy expression or experience or feeling or mode, rather, because that's who you are. And on the outset, most of us are like that, and more than that, it's not a deficiency that we have the signals, that we have these challenges. That's the way, that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. Sefer Shel Beinanim, not a Sefer Tzaddikim. The Tzaddik has transformed his nefesh bahamis. He has no challenges. Now, I can't explain it adequately, understandably. I can't explain it accurately, because you're dealing with someone who walks outside. He doesn't, anything, whatever the outside or the inside, there's nothing which he's told where he has to keep his eyes away from, his mind away from, because it doesn't, it's like Adam and Rishon prior to the Chet Eitzadas. It says they weren't even wearing clothes, and it wasn't an issue for them. We explain somebody that he goes out into Elam Hazah, into this world. These challengeless. It's hard to explain, but that's the tzaddik. Again, I use naturally. I jump to the context of tznius because that's where most of the challenges when it comes to machshava, to thought, to keep a clean mind, isn't in the context naturally of tznius, but it's in other areas as well, which we're all challenged to get more sleep and to eat more and to not to be careful of what we eat and so on. These are challenges. So the tzaddik has no challenge. Anything which is ungodly, the tzaddik abhors, for that matter. He's disgusted with it. It's not a challenge for him. We cannot say a regular person says, "Oh, I'm disgusted with that." He's probably lying. There's something within you which is animalistically driven. Yet you're told, your mandate is, don't internalize. It means to say the moment you notice something inappropriate, you turn your eyes, and you're talking about a millisecond, like you mentioned the other day. After 5 seconds, I turn my eyes away. 5 seconds when it comes to thought and something which is inappropriate to look at, that's like 5 years. Understandably, you're dealing with subtle experiences. You're talking about milliseconds, even a millisecond, literally like a thousandth of a second. The moment I notice it's inappropriate, I turn my eyes or turn my mind away from it. But the signal is coming, and the signal can come every single 5 seconds. Our mandate is to pull ourselves away from it. That's the Beinoni, and that's the Eilel Kol Adam Yimshach. We ought to draw ourselves to be the Beinoni, not the Tzaddik. Now, where does the Tzaddik come into the picture? As we learned, Avedis Matona Tenes Konascha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu decides when you're going to be a Tzaddik. But your strive, your drive, your aspiration is to be a Beinoni. In other words, don't feel down that you have these challenges. The Beinoni, which Elel Kol Adam Yimshach, we have to drive ourselves to be. We'll always have these challenges. The Nefesh Bahamis is fully intact. The point is not to allow our actions to be aligned with the Nefesh, to follow our actions, to follow the signals of the Nefesh Bahamis, not our speech and not even our thought. And we have the ability, and it's attainable, as we all know it. When it comes to thought, to say don't have the signal, that's not within our reach. To say when I notice the signal, I turn away from it. I push it away. B'shtei yadayim. I always mention shtei yadayim. This beautiful lashon al Torah. Why b'shtei yadayim? Sometimes it's from me. It's like I'm a from me. I don't allow it to come in, and I push it away. But on the other hand, I'm allowing it to trickle in. Torah says b'shtei yadayim. Hashem knows exactly if it was b'shtei yadayim and yadechos. But the mandate is to push it away b'shtei yadayim. Both, and then you're good. And Hashem is happy. You accomplished tremendous. You had the signal. Hashem, that's who you are. And that's where Hashem is excited. That you had the signal, you didn't give in to that signal. And again, it's not only thought, but it's speech and action. I speak thought because thought is where it becomes more difficult, but it's completely attainable, as we all know it. We have the ability to govern our heart. And despite the heart sends signals, to stop the signals, they shouldn't enter into machshava dibur ma'aseh, into our action, speech, and even our thought. Now, so the question is, this is the Beinoni. Has a Nefesh Bahamis. Nefesh Bahamis comes from Klipin Sitra Achra, comes from the evil. Again, it's not the higher level, or in other words, it's not the lowest level of Klipa, of impurity, but nonetheless, like we said, this is the Behema, the Nefesh Bahamis. The Alter Rebbe there explains towards the beginning of the first chapters, I believe 6 or 7. But nonetheless, I believe it's 6. Nonetheless, the question is, that seems very unaccomplishing in the end of the day. That seems in chapter 6. That seems unaccomplishing. That seems like a big waste of time. That a person could go through his whole life to be a Beinoni on the outset seems like chapter 7. It seems like a big waste of time. I never really, in other words, certainly we can try, as Alter Rebbe says in Perek Yud, the 14th chapter, try also to make a dent in our animal soul. And it should be tried to v'ahavta, we should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu with our animal soul as well. In other words, that the animal soul should appreciate. And at the end of the day, it can, in other words, it can find its passion as well. Not only in this which is animalistic, but it can find its passion in this which is godly. But on the average day, on the average basis, it's not so. And it's always challenging. So what's the point? This is the Alter Rebbe's question. Why did the Alter Rebbe, why did the Eibishter take the neshama? The Alter Rebbe explains, ask the question, why did the Eibishter take the neshama, which is so pure and divine, and bring it into the soul and say, you're stuck with the Nefesh Bahamis, it could be all your life, or until I decide you're going to become a tzaddik? Says Hashem, which simchut tzaddikim b'Hashem, tzaddikim not only do what Hashem wants, their joy, their passion is totally in godliness. And then if not, you'll remain all your life a Beinoni, and I'll have great satisfaction that you have the signals, you have the challenges, and you're overcoming them, etc., etc. In negative sur meira and staying away from evil, in the 365 Avedas, in Aseitei, never to be laid back and do every mitzvah that Hashem says to tell you. But that Hashem has incredible in satisfaction of this. As we learned in the previous chapters, famous Vart expression in Zayar, which you find in chapter 27. But if you look at the bigger picture, what's the point? You're telling a person I can never make a dent? If you'd say that our mandate is to be the tzaddik, and the tzaddik in no time transforms as Nefesh Bahamis, and it becomes a full-fledged ally, that it doesn't even send its signals, it becomes completely not only subordinate to the Nefesh Elikis, to the godly soul, which is again a certain state of a tzaddik, but more so it's transformed completely different. It's a tzaddik gomer, tzaddik sheini gomer, the multiple levels within the tzaddik itself. But that's the point, that I'm able to make a true dent, and more so to transform. That makes sense. That makes sense. That seems like a healthy mandate. That seems like an accomplishing mandate, or a mandate which leads to accomplishment. There's a goal. There's an objective. There's an accomplishment. This is a great achievement. But if you tell the person your mandate is to be a Beinoni, and you're going to be kind of stuck with it, Nefesh Bahamis, the challenge of the Nefesh Bahamis, so why would HaKadosh Baruch Hu do that? That is the question. Being that that they could not send away the animal soul all their days, to push it away from its place, to uproot it from the left side of the heart where it's situated. The Alter Rebbe explains in detail, as we can appreciate and understand, that the main station of the animal soul is in the heart, as opposed to mind. It doesn't do things intellectually, it does just by the impulse of the heart, and therefore we know that Yetzer Hara, that Nefesh Bahamis, is situated in the heart, not on the right side, but in the left side. The right side has a satellite station for the godly soul, which tries to overcome and be passionate heart, right? Over the passion of the Nefesh Bahamis, but its main station is in the mind. The Nefesh Elikis is essentially intellectual, as we spoke about this. And as the Alter Rebbe explains this very carefully in chapter 9, I believe it's chapter 9 and 10. You see, I'm off back and forth by one chapter over here. I believe it's chapter 9. And so that's where, so it's B'chalal Asmali, it's in the left side, its main station is in the left side of the heart, correct? In chapter 9. But I cannot uproot it from the left side of my heart, which is again B'chalal in the left side, but I can't uproot it from my heart, like the tzaddik, that there should not be any thoughts, any negative thoughts which will ascend to my mayach, to my mind, to think, to entertain my mind with these negative thoughts, these negative signals, which manifest itself in negative thoughts in my mind. I cannot control that it shouldn't ascend, right? I put a stop right when they would come in to my machshava. They should not manifest in a real structured thought. The moment I notice is inappropriate, true, but the signals are sent. I can never shun that. I can never shut that off. Different chapters made it very clear that a rosh, even someone sins once, literally once, in action, even in speech, even in thought for that matter, once accepting an inappropriate thought, one is considered a rasha. And as the Alter Rebbe brings from the Gemara, so why is he remaining? What makes him a Beinoni? And why is he in the end someone special ultimately? In other words, it's fully attainable, but special he is because because the garments, meaning to say the Beinoni, never allows the signal to enter. Literally, it never trespasses, not action, not speech, not even thought. So there is that accomplishment, and that what classifies him and categorizes him as a Beinoni. So the signal is sent from the heart, but it immediately wants to enter action, meaning to say in action to do contrary to what Hashem wants, or to be laid back and not to do what Hashem tells us to do. It has full control, and it says, no, you might tell me to sleep longer, despite I know I have to get up, I will not. So the signal's there, but when it comes to action, I will put a halt. And the same thing when it comes to speech, that it will say, yes, it will still, that's a good spit out, that Lashon Hara. It seems like a juicy piece of Lashon Hara. But I, the Beinani, will say, no, I'm not going to, because Hashem says not to. So again, he doesn't violate. The signal there is there in full force. But violate he does not. And the same thing when it comes to even thought, the signal, Nefesh Bahamis says, think that, entertain your mind with that. And that which again, that's normal. The thing is that the moment I notice what the signal is, and again, you're dealing with millisecond decisions, as we all understand and can appreciate it, I say no. Because the moment I say yes, even minimally, I'm called a Rosh, and the Beinani is not even a Rosh even once. He's a Beinani. So that's the whole advantage of the Beinani, that levushela einem mislapshim begufim. The garments, the messages, the animal soul, do that, speak that, think that. That does not invest in the body. And the Nefesh Elikis is in full dominance of that Kinis Kilela we explained before. But nonetheless, the Nefesh Bahamis itself is in full tact. And if it's in full tact, if that's the case, why did their neshama descend into this world to work and toil in vain? It seems in vain, because I'm never able to transform my Nefesh Bahamis. In my Nefesh Bahamis, my animal soul isn't fully intact, the way I was born. Like the way I was born. It seems to be in vain. Al Rebbe says chas v'shalom, because in the end of the day it can't be in vain, because God doesn't do anything levatala. He didn't even create anything levatala. Like Barak Kadosh Baruch Hu Davar Echad levatala, as it says in the end of Pirkei Avos, so we can appreciate He's God. He's a perfect God, a flawless God. And everything He does is for a purpose. And not only that, again, the Mishnah says that even everything He creates has a purpose. And we're dealing with billions and billions of creatures, which not everything, most of the stuff we haven't really cannot appreciate why it's there, why Hashem created, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu created everything for a purpose. And if He sends the neshama down into this world, in the end of the day, there is a purpose. So Alter Rebbe adds the word chas v'shalom, even in the question, even when he asks the question, that apparently, because in the end of the day, apparently, it seems that the neshama came to the toil larik in vain, but he adds chas v'shalom, because by definition, it's something which is a painful thought, a very discomforting thought. Alter Rebbe says chas v'shalom, and again within the question, lilachem kol yemei meyetzer, to that they fight all their days with the Yetzer Hara, and they can never overcome the Yetzer Hara, and that does not seem accomplished. So the Tehizeh, Alter Rebbe comes and explains that Tehizeh just want to say that like a fight, or you're going to win or I'm going to win. There's something. There's an end. There's an end. Like any other in any idea, there's a finale. There's an end. And when it comes to a struggling of two opponents, or you're going to win or I'm going to win, to stay in the same situation, but apparently it seems that way. Yet being the Nefesh Bahamis is always fully intact, and it seems like a war and an effort which seems in vain, larik. It seems empty. It seems in vain. It doesn't seem like doesn't seem fair. So why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do so? Why is Yiddishkeit based on this scenario? And it really is, as we all know it. The tzaddik is a different phenomenon. They are tzaddikim, but we ought to draw ourselves to be the Beinani. So why is it so? It goes on and says, this should be your consolation, this should be your comfort, to comfort, to console the Beinanim with a consolation and a comfort, which is going to be an important and a kiflaim l'tushia, even though if you look in the original, it's a Tanakh, this is a Lashon, I believe it's in Eiv, which there it says it has a negative connotation, but the Alter Rebbe, in using it in a positive manner over here, in a positive context, b'kiflaim letushia, which is a double, kiflaim means which is a double expression of consolation, or a double a consolation which has double dimensions to it, meaning to say nothing is left with once we have that message, that consoling message and that comforting message, which will leave anything unanswered and anything unappreciated, and thus anything which would deter us from serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not only doing what we have to do, but b'simcha v'tuv levov, with joy, maximum joy, and maximum elation of heart. And that's the kiflayim, with a double consolation. And to allow their heart to rejoice Bashem Hashechin Itam, in God, which dwells with them, within their Torah and within their Aveda, within their learning Torah and their Avedas Hashem, in their service, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, namely through them they're doing mitzvahs and staying away from, again, this what Hashem says not to do, but and Vavedasam, again in this page Dr. Rebbe emphasizes more the Aveda. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us to do, the Ki Mitzvah say, in other words, they're learning Torah, doing mitzvahs. In other words, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that they're able to rejoice despite this great question, which on its own, if you think about it, the more we think about it, the more this would perhaps deter us from doing what we have to do, turn us off, and would not allow us to continue serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or weaken our service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or make it sluggish and make it like anything else when you're not accomplishing anything, and you feel you're in the same spot throughout the entire time, as somebody has to, for example, cross one place to the other, and the more he travels, or the more he realizes, the more he's distant, or he's told that he can never come to the other end, which to him the other end, where apparently he feels maybe that's where the treasure is, and that's where the accomplishment, and he's told you can never get there. Or someone is swimming across a large area, and there's the waves coming his way that he's never been able to cross, and he's told, you're never going to make it to the other end. So that could bring a person to a state of melancholy. So the Alter Rebbe says, no, once you'll hear the consolation, and the consolation is b'kiflaim letushia, which means there won't be any room remaining with that message, that consoling and comforting message, which anything will remaining, which within the message, understanding that yes, you are doing something very special. And as we're going to see, what is so special ultimately of the learning Torah and doing the mitzvahs without transforming the Nefesh Bahamis? So what you will remain is with a true and absolute simcha. Again, as we said, a complete joy and elation of heart, l'sameach libam, that your heart will rejoice b'Hashem, in God, which sheichin itam, when He does dwell b'teich teirasam avedasam, in your Torah and your Aveda, despite that you're not transforming the Nefesh Bahamis. And here the Alter Rebbe brings the lashon of the Yenuka. And again, we're going to, God willing, explain who this Yenuka was. And he's brought in Zayar Parshas Balak. Interesting, it is this week's Parsha, I must say, it's Ashgacha Pratis. And in this week's Parsha in Zayar, so there's the famous Yenuka, which was a child, which had incredible, you could say, revelations, meaning to say, despite of his young age, he spoke and he dealt with the most inner parts of Torah, like the Tanaim, and which dealt with the esoteric part of Torah. He was also very well acquainted with the Nigla of the Torah, the revealed dimension of Torah, despite his young age. But more so, he was involved together with the great Tanaim, with composed which again the Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who the author of the Zayar, but again together with the other Tanaim, which dealt with and delved into the esoteric part of the Torah. One of them was a very young child called the Yenuka. Yenuka's b'lashon Yenik, kind of a nurturing. He was still, I don't know if he was physically nursing, but the Yenuka, a child, is called Yenuka because he's very close to the age of nursing, and that's the reason why a child is called a Yenuka. And this was a child which had incredible insights on the esoteric part of Torah, and he's quoted in Zayar. And he's quoted in Zayar in this parsha, in Parshas Balak, and he quotes on a pasuk, Achacham Eine Bereishei, and he explains this pasuk, and with his explanation, and again, this is the reason why Al Alter Rebbe brings this Yenuka. We could not only we're okay with our mandate, implementing our mandate, but we understand and we can appreciate the virtue of learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, despite that we remain a Beinoni and we're never able to overcome our nefesh bahamis. And we could serve, and we continue to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu with the greatest of passion, the most intense passion, and greatest of joy, and the most uplifted spirit, and elation of heart. God willing, we'll continue, and with this Yenuka, Bez Hashem, this coming week. Have a wonderful evening.